Before Adam walked in the Garden of Eden, the earth already existed, and that is an incontestable truth. The Bible declares in Genesis 1:1 that God created the heavens and the earth, but the following verse presents something intriguing. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. How could something created by God be immersed in darkness and disorder? This raises a question that few dare to explore. Did the earth have a prior existence, forgotten and erased from human records? And furthermore, who inhabited that ancient world? There are theories and spiritual evidences pointing to a specific figure, Lucifer, a being of light, glory and power, an angel who perhaps ruled the earth, even before the creation of man. If this topic has already stirred your mind, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications and get ready. What comes next may change your perspective on everything. In Ezekiel 28, Lucifer is described in language that goes beyond mere symbolism. The text speaks of an anointed cherub, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty, who walked in Eden, the garden of God. But this Eden does not seem to be the same garden in which Adam was placed. It is a celestial, earlier, glorious Eden, where precious stones adorned his garment. The description evokes a throne, an elevated position, a legitimate spiritual authority. The Bible does not state that Lucifer merely desired to be like God. It shows that he already held a position of command, and from that very position he fell. Could it be that his fall also marked the end of an ancient earthly kingdom, a spiritual collapse that transformed the created world into chaos? Isaiah 14 takes us even deeper into this revelation. The text records Lucifer declaring, "I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will exalt my throne. I will be like the Most High." But for someone to ascend to heaven, he must have been below it. To desire to exalt a throne, he must already have one. And if Lucifer was positioned below the heavens, reigning with authority, where exactly was he? The answer might be shocking. On earth. An earlier world, a spiritual reality entrusted to him. He did not just want to govern. He wanted to ascend, to surpass the limits established by God, and in doing so he fell. His fall was the result of a desire to exceed his purpose. But what else fell with him? If Lucifer ruled the earth before Adam, what existed during that forgotten period? Some scholars speak of a pre-Adamic civilization, not a human one, but a spiritual realm. Beings created with free will, light, and purpose. And among them, Lucifer was the leader. According to older theologies, this creation could not withstand corruption. Pride, disobedience, and vanity shattered the divine order. The result was judgment. The once resplendent spiritual world collapsed. The earth became formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep. It was against this backdrop that God said, "Let there be light." But that light was not the creation of the universe. It was the beginning of a new chapter after a cosmic collapse that many still prefer to ignore. The concept of a pre-Adamic earth inhabited by Lucifer may seem strange to traditional theology, but it has been gaining traction among scholars and interpreters who pay closer attention to the gaps in the scriptures. The so-called gap theory, for example, argues that there is a vast expanse of time between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. In that silent interval, grand and tragic events might have taken place. Lucifer would have been appointed as regent of a spiritual system on earth, not as an adversary, but as a guardian of order. However, as time passed, something changed within him. And instead of maintaining divine balance, he sought to claim for himself the glory that belongs only to the Creator. It was at that moment that the rebellion was born. But why would God entrust the earth to Lucifer before creating man? The answer may lie in the structure of spiritual creation. Lucifer was an anointed cherub, a being with delegated authority, positioned between the heavens and the lower worlds. He was a bridge between the divine throne and creation. His mission was to represent God's glory, preserve harmony, and reflect light. Yet instead of reflecting, he wanted to absorb. Instead of serving, he wanted to dominate. And in that act of pride, he dragged other spiritual beings with him, angels who chose to follow his path. It was this insurrection that transformed light into darkness, worship into ambition, and a kingdom into ruins. The scriptures tell us that there was war in heaven, Revelation 12:7. But wars do not begin out of nowhere. They are the result of prior conflicts, accumulated tensions, and deep divisions. If there was a war in heaven, perhaps it started down below with the collapse of Lucifer's government on earth. His desire to ascend, to conquer the heavens, was not merely symbolic, it was literal. He wanted to break the separation between creation and the Creator, and that attempt generated a spiritual upheaval so violent that its repercussions were felt throughout the physical universe. Darkness covered the deep. The earth lost its form, and the Spirit of God began to move over the waters, preparing the way for something new. Yet the divine plan was not thwarted. God was not taken by surprise by Lucifer's rebellion. On the contrary, he already knew everything and had already charted a path of redemption. The creation of man came soon after, not as a mere chronological sequence, but as a strategic response. God would place on earth a new being, made of dust, yes, but carrying within something that Lucifer never possessed. The image and likeness of the Creator himself. Man would be lesser in glory, yet greater in purpose. And perhaps that is precisely what further inflamed the enemy's hatred. To see a being made of dust called a son, while he, an angel of light, was expelled and cast into darkness. Imagine for a moment the scenario that preceded Genesis 1:3. A world immersed in darkness, disfigured by a spiritual judgment that few dare consider. The Spirit of God hovered over the waters, but hovered over what exactly? A destroyed earth, formless, empty, cloaked in shadows. This was not the state of a newly formed creation, but of something that had been unmade, and perhaps that devastation marked the end of Lucifer's reign, the collapse of his attempt to establish a domain parallel to God's. He wanted to rule independently, yet the world he controlled became an abyss. And in that somber silence, God decided to begin anew. When God said, "Let there be light," he was not merely creating the sun or initiating chronological time. He was decreeing a new principle over a world that had lost its direction. The light, in this case, is more than physical. It is a spiritual declaration of authority. It is as if God were saying, "The reign of darkness is over, now it is my turn." The creation of man thus appears not as an absolute beginning, but as a new cycle, a new covenant, a fresh chance for the world. Man would come not to dwell in spiritual ruins, but to restore, to govern, and to bear fruit. Yet something lurked, something that knew that environment well, and it would not be long before it appeared in the garden. The serpent in Eden did not emerge out of nowhere. It was already there, and more than that, it knew exactly what to do. The Bible does not portray the serpent as an innocent creature. It is cunning, experienced, subtle. It speaks, questions, and manipulates. How could a creature like that be present at the very beginning of human history? The most coherent answer is that it was not part of that new beginning. It was a remnant of what came before, a survivor of the old order, now in disguise, seeking to infiltrate the new creation. It was Lucifer, the former regent, trying to sabotage what came to replace his fallen kingdom, and tragically he succeeded. Thus, the fall of man was not merely a moral stumble, it was the perfect blow in a much older war. Lucifer lost the throne, but he did not lose his intent. He saw in man a threat to the dominion he once had, and therefore he attacked with what he did best, distorting the truth. The very pride that led to his fall was injected into the human heart. You will be like God. It was not just any phrase. It was an echo of the angelic fall itself. Adam and Eve fell not merely because of disobedience, but because they embraced the same ambition that destroyed Lucifer. And at that moment, the new world began to carry the inheritance of the old. From the fall of man, something profound was activated. Lucifer began to operate within the earth once again, no longer as a legitimate regent, but as an usurper. The authority he had lost was now conferred upon man, yet with sin, that authority became corrupted. Man lost his position of full dominion, and the enemy resumed his influence, not by right, but through legitimacy obtained by deceit. What was once a spiritual kingdom of light became a dark battleground where the throne of the earth was in dispute. And since then, two natures have come to exist within man, the image of God and the echo of the pride that toppled the angel of light. Throughout the Old Testament, we see traces of this invisible war, spiritual beings in conflict, kingdoms oppressed by hidden forces, and men used as pieces in a cosmic battle. In Daniel 10, for example, an angel states that he was hindered for 21 days by the prince of the kingdom of Persia, a spiritual entity that dominated a region of the physical world. This shows that there is a hidden hierarchy, a structure of spiritual power that remains active, attempting to maintain control over territories, peoples, and nations. Could these be remnants of Lucifer's ancient empire, a kingdom that fell, yet whose ruins still operate in the shadows? When Jesus was tempted in the desert, he heard a surprising proposal. Lucifer, now called the devil, showed him all the kingdoms of the world and said, "All these I will give you if you will bow down and worship me, for they have been delivered to me." This statement is powerful, and Jesus did not contest it. It indicates that, in some way, the enemy held authority over the earthly kingdoms. But how? When? The most accepted answer is that this authority was usurped from man at the time of the fall. Others suggest that it originates even earlier, from an era when Lucifer spiritually dominated the earth, and that he still tries today to reconstruct that dominion through systems, empires, and false religions. This proposal made to Jesus reveals more than a mere temptation. It reveals an ancient desire to restore power. Lucifer wanted even the Son of God to submit to him, acknowledging his ownership of the world. It is as if he was saying, "This kingdom was mine before, and I want it to be mine again." But Jesus did not bow. He came to reclaim the lost authority, not through bargaining, but through the cross. The earth, though still under the influence of darkness, was about to be redeemed by a new kind of king, humble, holy, and eternal. And with that, Lucifer not only lost the power to deceive, but his defeat was sealed forever. Despite Christ's victory on the cross, the spiritual system of Lucifer's ancient kingdom still strives to manifest in the world. The Bible affirms that he is the God of this age, and that the whole world lies in the power of the devil. But this is not merely a figure of speech. It refers to an organized, influential structure that operates through ideas, philosophies, governments, and even within religious institutions. This legacy of the old dominion continues to operate in the human mind and behavior. Lucifer lost his celestial glory, yet he still tries to rebuild his empire by human means, influencing culture, morals, values, and chiefly the concept of truth. When we study ancient civilizations, we notice common traces that suggest the existence of fallen wisdom, worship of winged entities, construction of towers to reach the heavens, human sacrifices, and power structures based on spiritual domination. These are evidences of an ancestral memory, an echo of the old kingdom that Lucifer attempted to establish. Cultures such as the Babylonian, Egyptian, and Sumerian practiced rituals that imitated celestial patterns, though corrupted. The Tower of Babel, for instance, was not merely an engineering project, but a symbol of man's attempt, influenced by the same spirit of Lucifer, to reach the heavens without God. A clear reflection of the first fall. Over the centuries, Lucifer's plan became more subtle. Instead of confronting directly, he began to imitate, infiltrate, and corrupt. The Bible calls him the father of lies and an angel of light, because his strategy is to appear righteous, appear wise, appear divine, while in truth he is not. He inspires religious systems devoid of truth, spiritualities lacking repentance, and messages that put man at the center instead of the Creator. All this harkens back to his ancient intention, to be worshipped, to receive glory, even if indirectly. And so, even without a visible throne, his ancient kingdom attempts to rise again in the heart of humanity. But there is a limit. Lucifer's ancient dominion will not be restored. God's word reveals that he is condemned, and his time is numbered. The book of Revelation shows that he will be cast into the lake of fire, along with all who follow him. His desire for a throne will be buried under eternal justice, and what began with an invisible fall in heaven will end with a public defeat before all of creation. The kingdom he tried to build before Adam will be definitively destroyed, and a new kingdom, pure, eternal, unchanging, will be established by him who never fell and never will, the true King of Kings, Jesus Christ. Even knowing that his defeat is certain, Lucifer continues to try to regain the dominion he lost. Through authoritarian governments, manipulative ideologies, corrupt religious systems, and even seemingly benign spiritual movements, he persists in trying to replicate his original model of kingdom. An empire where he is at the center, receiving glory and control. His actions are stealthy, strategic, and often imperceptible to natural eyes. But those who walk in the Spirit can discern the patterns, the cult of ego, the disdain for truth, the inversion of good and evil, all marks of the same ancient throne attempting to rise again. That is why the story of Lucifer is not only about the past, but also about the present. His attempt to rule the earth before Adam is reflected in his obsession with dominating human structures before the return of Christ. He knows that time is running out, and the closer we get to the definitive restoration of God's kingdom, the more intense his activity becomes. The word says that he has come down with a mighty wrath, knowing that he has little time left. Revelation 12:12. He cannot win, but he can still drag others down. He cannot truly reign, but he still tries to influence, and his main weapon today is the lie cloaked in light. Jesus did not come merely to save man, but to restore everything that was lost, including spiritual authority over the earth. In Romans 8, we read that all creation groans and awaits the revelation of the children of God. Creation suffers because it remembers what it lost. It feels the remnants of the old dominion and longs for the rule of the true king. Lucifer's kingdom will not be replaced by a religion nor by a system, but by a new era of justice, truth, and glory. An era in which Christ will reign with an iron scepter, and with him will be those who did not bow to the system of this world. The question, did Lucifer rule the earth before Adam, leads us to an even more powerful answer. He will not rule afterward. The enemy's story is marked by pride, fall, usurpation, and deceit. But God's story is marked by purpose, redemption, and victory. Man was placed on earth to reflect the glory of the Creator, and even after the fall, that plan was not cancelled. In Christ, everything is being restored, and in due time, all will be fully revealed. The throne of the old kingdom will be destroyed, and at the center of the universe, there will be only one enthroned name, Jesus. It is curious to realize that God's original plan for man was one of dominion, but not tyranny, rather representation. Man was created to rule the earth, yes, but as the image and likeness of the Creator, meaning with justice, compassion, truth, and balance. This completely contrasts with the type of government that Lucifer attempted to establish, a reign founded on pride, control, and self-exaltation. He ruled for himself. God created man to rule. With him, the difference between these two kingdoms is more than theological. It is moral, spiritual, and eternal. That is why God is not merely seizing dominion from the darkness. He is preparing mature children to occupy the place that was once corrupted. As shocking as it may be to imagine that Lucifer ruled over the earth before Adam, even more impactful is knowing that man, even fallen, received a superior promise. The Bible says that those who remain faithful until the end will reign with Christ. Revelation 26. This is not mere allegory. It is the prophetic destiny of all who belong to God's kingdom. While the enemy desperately strives to restore his lost empire, God is raising a generation that does not seek a throne, but is being prepared to sit with Christ in heavenly places. The throne that Lucifer lost will not be returned. It will be occupied by those who surrender, not by those who exalt themselves. This entire spiritual war that began before the creation of Adam reaches its prophetic climax. The Bible speaks of a final time when the whole world will bow before a global government, directly influenced by the ancient spirit of Lucifer. This system, described as the beast in Revelation, will be the ultimate attempt to usurp dominion over the earth once again, but it will be short-lived. The manifestation of God's kingdom will put an end to every simulation of authority. The king will come with eyes like blazing fire, crowns upon his head, and on his, thy the name, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. What once was will be no more. What was lost will be restored. Thus, understanding the possibility of a kingdom before Adam is not merely delving into ancient mysteries. It is opening one's eyes to the battle that still rages. The history of the earth did not begin with man, and it certainly will not end with him. There is a war that spans ages, thrones, and dimensions. But there is also an eternal decree that the kingdom will belong to the Lord, and he will reign forever. No other throne will stand. No other name will be exalted. No glory will be shared. What Lucifer tried to conquer by force, Christ conquered through obedience, and that is why his kingdom will never end. Lucifer lost his throne, his glory, and his position, yet he never lost his obsession. He continues trying to rebuild a kingdom based on lies, pride, and illegitimate worship. And that kingdom is not only mystical or distant, it manifests in our daily choices, in human power structures, in ideas that exalt the self above all else. When you understand that there is an ancient spirit operating behind these structures, you begin to see the world through different eyes. It is not merely a matter of moral good versus evil. It is a contest for worship, authority, and throne, an invisible war, yet extremely real. The Bible warns us that the Antichrist will come according to the working of Satan, with power, signs, and deceptive wonders. This will be the final effort of the ancient regent to reclaim the throne he lost. But even before this prophetic figure appears, the spirit of the Antichrist is already in the world, operating through unbelief, relativism, and the inversion of values. And he does so using the same strategy seen in Eden, distorting what God said. He does not appear with horns. He appears as light. He does not come with shouts. He comes with subtlety. Because his desire has not changed. He wants the throne again. But this time, he wants to claim it using the image of man. That is why the battle today takes place within each one of us. The same choice made by Lucifer to exalt himself is presented to humanity daily. And the world's proposition is clear. You can be your own God. This directly echoes the original rebellion. The enemy is not merely interested in inflicting pain or destruction. He wants to divert the focus of worship. He knows that the throne of the human heart is far too valuable. If he can no longer rule the cosmos, he will try to reign in our minds, in our desires, and in our decisions. But there is a choice: remain aligned with the pattern of heaven or bow to the fallen structure of the past. There is no neutrality in this conflict. Lucifer's kingdom was real. He possessed glory, power, and influence, but it was consumed by vanity. His attempt to return is desperate, futile, and doomed. And those who today align with the true light not only resist the fall, but are prepared to reign with Christ for eternity. While the ancient prince of darkness struggles to regain a lost dominion, the children of light move forward to assume the governance of a kingdom that will never be shaken. It is not about religion. It is about position. It is not about a system. It is about identity. And in the end, only one throne will remain, and it will not be Lucifer's. The idea that Lucifer ruled the earth before Adam may seem controversial, but it reveals a profound pattern. God always begins with order. The enemy attempts to corrupt, and God responds with restoration. What happened before man serves as a warning for what unfolds within man. The pride that destroyed a glorious cherub is the same that seeks to overthrow kings, leaders, families, and even churches. The very lie that toppled Eden is repeated today in media, philosophies, and behaviors. But those who know the truth no longer walk in darkness. They understand that the story already has an ending, and that victory will not belong to those who seek self-exaltation, but to those who choose to surrender. The Bible does not reveal all the details about what existed before the creation of man. Yet, it provides enough pieces to help us realize that the visible world is only part of an invisible war. There is more happening than meets the eye. And understanding the earth's spiritual past aids us in comprehending the present and the future. The rebellion that began with Lucifer has not ended. It continues in every heart that chooses to stray from the truth. But God's plan also continues, and He did not create man to be a mere spectator, but to be an heir. The position that the enemy lost is being prepared for the obedient, not for the arrogant. Therefore, this story is not only about Lucifer, it is about you, about which kingdom you are nurturing, about who occupies the throne of your heart. Every day, the spiritual realm remains in conflict, and your life is at the center of this battle. The ancient regent tries to reconquer territories, not geographical but spiritual, and he does so through choices, thoughts, and alliances. But you were not created to repeat Lucifer's fall. You were called to reflect the glory of the true King. The same God who said, "Let there be light," continues to say today, "Let there be light in you." And now that you know this truth, the choice lies before you. Continue nurturing the patterns of a fallen kingdom, or align yourself with the eternal kingdom. Lucifer's throne was destroyed, but God's throne remains firm, and He is preparing a people who will reign with justice, wisdom, and humility, not by merit, but by redemption. Quote of the day: "Pride destroys kingdoms, but humility builds eternities." If this message spoke to your heart, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, leave your like, and comment which city you are watching from. Until the next video.